All right, we have short reviews for March 13th. It's several days past that point, but we're getting there anyway. And these are from the general pool of mid to late March releases. We're kind of getting to the end of March a little bit early again. Starting right up with a pretty curious mixture of black metal musicianship that has now focused on what I would consider a post-punk or depressive rock album. And in a lot of ways, they're taking a tour of depressive rock for this record and leaving behind a lot of their black metal affect of their earlier releases. And now this is just kind of a rock record with black metal vocals, not unlike the Alpha Hane record that I reviewed last month, I believe. So if you're a fan of the points where dark metal, gothic rock, and black metal meet up in tone and purpose, I think this is a particularly strong record that becomes a little bit too ambitious as it goes along. The first 6 or so songs are pretty spot on. They're all pretty memorable, if not sometimes a little bit derivative in their shaping, but overall a catchy, memorable thing. And then the second half of the record, it kind of loses the plot along the way. You know, it's they have a pretty strong run to start, but I think this one needed some cinching up and just to focus on like the best songs that were available here to make that strong impression. Not a bad record, not a flawless record either. So despite folks jumping off the Hour of Penance ship right from the start, Hideous Divinity has been one of the more interesting offshoots from the Italian brutal and dramatic death metal style. And this band, they're better qualified to be described as a technical death metal band overall. I feel like their evolution over the course of their 5 albums has echoed that of Ulcerate in a lot of ways. But their basal inspiration is maybe more related to bands like Nile and Hate Eternal, where there was a different type of brutality driving their style, and that still translates to the way that they write today, especially in terms of the guitar work. There is some blackened dissonance that finds its way into their work, but this record is particularly dramatic. It is a little bit long-winded. It is still thinking man's technical death metal. There are progressive metal influences in there here and there if you want to parse down to that level of detail. But overall, this is kind of a world-class brutal death metal band when it comes down to it. I think the drumming is particularly expert on this record. I think it's fantastic drumming overall, and it's one of the Hideous Divinity's best. I think that I'm such a fan of Cobra Verde, their 2014 record, where they still had that brutality behind it, but here there's such a finesse to an unextinct that I couldn't put it down. I really wanted to keep revisiting this record. It is one of the better records of released in March, and something that's definitely worth your time if you've been a fan of Hideous Divinity in the past, but maybe you found them a little bit too rigid. This is a more rhythmically loose and a dramatic feeling record, which I think stands out in their discography and is part of the natural progression that has happened since they started. Udad is a side project from the fellow behind Mork. Thomas Eriksson is sort of reaching out into a new solo project with this band, and is certainly different from Mork. And I think that the way that he describes it as a sort of devolution from the first Mork record, and in a way that makes sense. This is much more of I don't want to say Burzum-esque style record, but it has an intimacy to it and an atmospheric quality to it that has also some kind of depressive rock kicks to the way it develops melodies. So it's a sentimental record with a very intimate tendency to it that still centers around the riff. It still has a very strong black metal affect, but not it's not a dark and coughed out sort of thing. This is much more of a gloom-stricken and almost maudlin type of black metal record. And I think it's so effectively melodic that for me, this kind of outclasses the direction that Mark has taken more recently. I feel like this is a very substantial record, and it has a certain vibe to it that carries through pretty well. Dionysiac is a French quintet who are focused on an unorthodox style of arcane doom metal on Diagonos. I believe this is their debut full-length album, and it is at once ritualistic but also avant-garde. It is also traditional in form. There's something very organic and raw about it that feels very real. It feels present and it feels live in studio, and it has this really rich bass guitar tone that carries through the whole thing, which I'm gonna like no matter what. It provides this percussive springing aspect to the movement of the record, which is already kind of weird to begin with. So I appreciated how much this stood out in terms of tone and the way that they present it, but also there's some substance to this record in terms of its lyrical content, its themes, and basically the darker that it gets, the more intense that I felt it was. I really appreciated the directive of this record, and I think that the guitar tone could use a little bit of tweaking here and there. There's a couple little things there, but overall, this is a captivating record that I really like most. Again, like most I Void Hanger records, I definitely want to sit with it longer. I need a couple more months, basically, to really soak it up.
Hey, young man, stop wondering.
So while I was all set to review the Chicago, Illinois-based technical brutal death metal band Wounds for their debut full-length album, I feel like I hit the same wall in terms of their this full length as I did with their last EP, where I felt like there's definitely that kind of unique leader, early 2000s era death metal foundation for what they do, and I really like that. And they brought this intense, personalized rhythm guitar style in here that drives through the whole album and kind of kicks ass the whole way through. There's a lot to like about it, but I found that the more I sat with it, the less I had to say about it. It's like everything is strong across the board, above average. The album art is pretty interesting. Overall, everything is pretty menacing and aggressive. It's everything I like about this style of death metal. I just didn't feel like there was a conversation to have around it. It wasn't really getting me there. There was no, it's like a solid listen, Thomas Greenwood and the Talismans is a neo-psychedelic rock band from Bergamo, Italy, and they have some kind of stoner rock associations otherwise. And the focus of this record and I think their first two records is basically kind of acid rock, garage rock feeling, psychedelic rock. If you're a fan of like the Mirrors and that style of neo-psychedelic music, this has a little bit of that, but it's much more song-oriented. In that sense, it really captures the sort of 70s garage psychedelia feeling, but these songs are pretty polished and easygoing. Some of them are a little more jammed than others, and the big note here is that the production values have improved beyond the first record. I feel like I can hear more of the instruments in here, and the songwriting is just more catchy and confident. I had a great time listening to this record. It's just a feel-good record, and I try to fit in one of those as often as I can in this style, because this one stands out, I would say, overall. So check that out if that's your kind of thing at all.